I want to be frank to start off this video. EA is a company. At the end of the day, the only thing they care about is their bottom line. The developers that make these games are not the ones making these decisions. And those are the people that got into this industry out of passion for wanting to make video games. But the people at EA, the people that are at the top, they only care about money because that's their job. Because they got into this industry of business to make money. They didn't get into this industry to make games. They didn't even get into this industry to necessarily work in a gaming business, just a business in general, to make money and run a profitable company. So being quite frank, they don't care about the games. They don't care about the consumers because that's just not their job. But does that mean we have to like it? No, because I sure as hell don't like it. As gamers, we can't let this shit fly. This video is powered by LazerzZ Entertainment. If you enjoyed this content, consider becoming a patron over on patreon.com/LazerzZ for access to the Patreon exclusive podcast, The Kill Connor Clubhouse, early access to the Cinema Room podcast, being part of polls for future videos, and other early access material. With that said, please enjoy the video. So, a week or two ago, EA had a hearing with the UK Parliament, the country that I'm from. The UK is not a country, it's a group of countries. I'm sorry, that's not relevant. They had a hearing to discuss the morality of loot boxes. Now, see, this is the this is the issue. But first, I'm going to be talking about what exactly are loot boxes. If you've been living under a rock for the past couple of years, you might not know what loot boxes are. Which, you know, don't blame you. I mean, no one else is to blame but you. But I don't blame. Who cares? Anyway, loot boxes are essentially a form of in-game gambling. It's been a thing for a very long time. I mean, loot boxes date back to even before we had video games. I mean, you've got the whole concept of loot boxes essentially from things like Pokemon cards, Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and things such as that, where you're opening a pack and you're getting things. You pay one standard price and you might get the best cards ever. You might get Karibo again. But, you know, that's okay. You win some, you lose all of them. But it's made its way into mainstream video games. First off, it was microtransactions, just being, you know, you pay £5, you get a costume, you get some extra weapons, you know, dumb shit, right? And then it progressed to replacing a normal progression system, with the most egregious being in Star Wars Battlefront 2. It's since been corrected, although probably not perfectly, but it plays a hell of a lot better. And if you're playing Battlefront 2 now, you're gonna have a blast because they removed this whole system. But when it released, it was full of loot boxes and microtransactions. There was no progression system necessarily. The only way that you could get things was through star cards and things that you got through loot boxes, which you didn't have to pay for. But you kind of had to pay for, because you could acquire them in the game, but they're always made so difficult and so expensive with in-game currency that it's easier just to go ahead and buy some microtransactions, buy some fucking credits, and get those loot boxes. Now, it's been a huge part of the FIFA Ultimate Team of EA's biggest franchise, being FIFA. I've played Ultimate Team, and honestly, I've got to admit, I think it's pretty well balanced. And it's really here where it's implemented the best, because although I get it, right, when you're playing these games, you don't want to have to fork out real life money when you've already paid for the game. Like, I totally get it, and I agree. I think that in an ideal world, Ultimate Team would either be free, and then all of the money would be through us buying packs, or it would be the alternative, where you pay for the game, and then it's all done through in-game currency. But, I mean, that's just not the world that we live in, unfortunately, and I think that it's implemented in a way that works, because when you're buying the game, you're buying the base game of FIFA, you're buying Ultimate Team, you're buying the Journey story mode, you're buying, you know, these different leagues and championships and cups, you're buying the career mode as well. But on top of that, you can also spend your own money in this Ultimate Team, which is essentially an additional feature where you're buying these packs, and I think that it works in a way that's kind of done well. It's kind of implemented well in the sense that, honestly, you don't have to spend real life money. You can if you choose to, but you don't really have to. It's not really the same as Battlefront 2's situation. And I think that if you're gonna do it, it really only works where it's geared towards these certain games, because you have football cards in real life, you know? Like, I used to collect football cards when I was younger, and I gave a shit about football, but now I'm just an epic gamer, so it's, you know, much better anyway. And so, essentially, you know, this is it's that, but put it in a video game, and you can pay real life money if you want. You can get these packs, you can get these players, and you can use them. It's really taken it to another level, because you're not just getting these collectible cards, you're getting actual in-game things that you can then use, and you can progress through the leaderboards. That's my opinion so far on loot boxes. It's if it takes away from a progression system, it's bad. If it's implemented like FIFA Ultimate Team, then I don't think it's as bad at all, because you can get a lot of things just from playing the game. Like, I used to play FIFA Ultimate, and I never used microtransactions, and I did very well. I thought it was fine. I had a good time. It wasn't a grind, like, and that's just how it was. So I think that was implemented well where I played it. But I think there obviously can be issues like with Battlefront 2, and, you know, it's becoming more of an issue. If you look at something like Shadow of War, where the entire game was microtransactions. I hear they fixed it now, but it was such a grind, because every single fort got harder and harder and harder in the end of the game, and you were just grinding these forts over and over and over again. It was just an absolute mess, and it was Warner Brothers' way of trying to push you to buy microtransactions, to buy these loot boxes. And it's just a disgusting business practice. Now, what is the situation that's actually happened? Well, apparently, they've now taken to calling them not loot boxes, but surprise mechanics. That's the technical term they use, because that's far more ethical, using surprise mechanics.
Do you consider loot boxes to be an ethical feature of your games?
Well, first, we don't call them loot boxes. I think that was...
Whatever term you wish to apply to them, do you consider them ethical?
So what we look at as surprise mechanics. But I think it's important to look at this.
Apparently, they think they're quite fun and ethical, and I think people really enjoy them. If you go, okay, so this was the example used, was if you go into a supermarket and, for example, you get a fucking Kinder Egg, people find it really fun. Kids find it really fun, so that means they should be implemented into video games. And what?
If you go to a, I don't know what your version of Target is, but a store that sells a lot of toys, and you do a search for surprise toys, what you'll find is that this is something people enjoy. They enjoy surprises. And so it's something that's been part of toys for years, whether it's Kinder Eggs or Hatchimals or LOL Surprise. We do think the way that we have implemented these kind of mechanics, and FIFA, of course, is our big one, our FIFA Ultimate Team and our packs, is actually quite ethical and quite fun.
If I'm buying a Kinder Egg, for a start, it's not replacing anything, right? I'm not getting a Kinder Egg and having to pay money for a Kinder Egg instead of naturally being able to acquire these things. Like, it's not the same. People aren't mad about the randomized mechanic. People are mad about randomized mechanics replacing a progression system, especially in online games, where things are made harder for you if you don't spend money. It's not the same. And on top of that, you know, the gamble with a Kinder Egg is you're always going to get the chocolate, which is really what you're paying for. Like, nobody buys a Kinder Egg for the shit little fucking toy you get. No, not even children, at least I didn't. You buy it because you're like, oh, I want the chocolate, but also you get this little thing in it as well. You know it's going to be trash, but you're only paying like a fucking £1 for it. Who cares? Right? But when you're playing Star Wars Battlefront, and playing the game and leveling up doesn't get you rewards, doesn't get you upgrades, any of these things, but paying money for randomized loot boxes is the only way of progressing, that's where the issue is, right? That, like, how do you miss that? I don't think they did miss that. I think that they're trying to get out of a tight situation, and they only care about money. So, of course, this is the way that they're going to spin it, but I just thought I had to give my input because it's absolutely ridiculous. Now, I've heard people's rebuttals to this. People have been saying to me, like, oh, games these days are underpriced anyway, which Colin Moriarty made a good video on. I'll link it down below on how games are actually underpriced these days if you look at inflation, if you look at a bunch of different factors, and it's a really interesting video. But that doesn't excuse loot boxes and microtransactions that are scummy, done in scummy ways. It doesn't, because games cost this amount, right? Games cost $60 these days. That's just how much they cost. If we want to talk about are games underpriced or not, then that's a conversation to have. Yeah, are games underpriced? Potentially they are underpriced, but that's not the point. That doesn't mean, games are underpriced these days, we better put in a bunch of fucking loot boxes and make the game sacrifice for it. Make the game worse just to put these loot boxes in. Make the game harder in areas. Make it grindy just so we can sell loot boxes. That doesn't justify it. That's not a sound argument. If games are underpriced, make it a higher price, but give me a well-rounded game that I don't have to spend more money in order to progress, and in order to get better, in order to compete with the other players in this online space. That doesn't make sense. People saying, oh, they've got to make up that extra money somewhere. What? Okay. What the fuck does that even mean? This is the world we live in, where games cost $60. They cost more than they used to. It used to be like, I used to, £40 for a game. And now they cost more, like £50, £60 sometimes. And so that's the world we live in. That's how much games cost. But that's not then an excuse to say, oh, well, we need to put in a bunch of microtransactions. Our game's it's got to be detrimental to our game, because games are underpriced technically in the world today. That's not a reason. That's a dumb, what are you talking about? And at the end of the day, right, although this is a moneymaker for EA, it's only going to hurt them in the long run, because we've seen what happened to Star Wars Battlefront 2. We've seen what has happened to games in the past. It's becoming a bigger thing these days. People used to let microtransactions fly. People used to let loot boxes fly. They don't anymore. If something's announced and it's got loot boxes, nobody's buying it. Some people will, but most people won't, because I think that people who play video games have got to this point. They've really learned that you've got to vote with your wallet. You've got to show people we're not dealing with this. Unfortunately, there's all these games that do it so much better, and you are putting these scummy business practices into the games that we play, ruining our games, and we don't want it anymore. And so people are just not buying those games. And that's pretty much what happened with Star Wars Battlefront 2, is a lot of people gave them so much shit. They didn't buy the game. It was like the most disliked, downvoted shit on Reddit and YouTube, because people were showing their disdain for this shit. And it's this is it again. I had to give my 2 cents because it's happening again, and I don't want this to go unchecked. I don't want people to not know about this. I don't want people to not be talking about this, because it's a huge fucking issue. Whether it's an ethical issue or not, I really don't fucking care. If that's a loophole you can use to take them out of video games, go for it. But that's not what I care about. I don't care if it's ethical or not. That doesn't fucking bother me. The issue is that it's detrimental to our games, and we're being taken advantage of. Developers think they can make half a fucking game and sell it to us, and then put a bunch of loot boxes in. People think that they can get rid of a leveling system, get rid of a progression system, and give us all of our weapons, our upgrades, our perks for these highly multiplayer games, just through randomized loot boxes that you have to pay for. And that's not acceptable. That's the bit that I dislike and will not accept. I don't give a shit whether it's gambling or not, whether it's good for children or whether it's ethical. That does not matter to me. What I care about is that it's detrimental to the video games that we're playing and to the video games industry, because it shows that people can get away with this bullshit, and we can't let that happen. Honestly, I think those are just my thoughts on this. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. It's a bit of a ranty video. I sort of went off on one here. It felt like the old days where Ubisoft would do things wrong and I would be upset. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts on the loot box situation. Let me know your thoughts on the surprise mechanic situation. What do you think EA is going to do? Do you think this is going to hurt them? Do you think it's going to help them in the long run? What do you think we're going to see happen to the games industry moving forward? Let me know your thoughts. I'd be really interested to know. Anyways, let me know any other topics you'd like me to talk about in the comment section below. I got a video coming out soon on Lego Star Wars, which will be a fun one. Thanks for all the support on streams and on the Jedi Fallen Order video I put out. It's doing really, really well, so thank you very much for that, and I will see you all bloody next time. Goodbye.